Hey folks, just a quick note. A few times in the video you'll see me holding up my phone like this. The reason why is because that was the only way that I could record David's audio, because at the last minute, and I'm talking literally last minute, and I knew something like this was gonna happen, my microphone completely blew out. Stupid makeshift home studio, but we were able to still record the video of the conversation that we had, and the audio was recorded via speakerphone, and I spent a lot of hours piecing it all together. So I really hope you enjoy it. Just wanted to explain the difference in audio right there. This was a blast to do. Special thanks to David A.R. White for stopping by the site. That was very, very cool of him. And I'm going to show you a promo real quick for the new movie Beckman, and then we'll get back to our regularly scheduled interview already in progress. This has been Brad in a car for no reason.
My name is Aaron Beckman. There's gotta be a way out.
God.
Forgive me. Why do you doubt?
I'm in trouble.
I'll always protect you.
So how did you get the acting bug? Because you grew up in Kansas in a Mennonite community, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard me say the joke before, but I always love saying it just because I think it's funny.
Yeah.
You know, the joke is if you don't know anything about the Mennonites make the Mormons look like a pack of Hell's Angels. It's an old joke, but it still seems funny to me.
So I told that to my wife. I saw you say that. My wife was raised Mormon, and so my wife knew a little bit about the Mennonites too, and she really liked that a lot. She appreciated it and got that reference.
But I worked on a farm growing up. Yeah, my dad was a Mennonite pastor, so I saw one movie in the theater the first 18 years of my life, and I didn't do a lot of, we had a television, so we were the new Mennonites.
Yeah.
So I had an appreciation for TV early on, all those 80s shows and
Same.
I'm dating myself, but I enjoyed that. But for whatever reason, I had this dream inside of me for the entertainment industry and telling stories. And
yeah.
So, I would pick up those. When I got to take an AV class, my buddy's dad was the AV instructor, so he let me take the big cameras out with those big VHS. I think the cameras were like this big or something you put on your shoulder. So I started doing since I was 14, I started filming stupid things. And I've continued pretty much all the way through my older adult years.
And the cameras have gotten better too. I started doing the same thing when I was that age, but with the old VHS cameras.
Yeah.
Doing
exactly.
the high 8 tapes and the deck-to-deck editing. What was the first movie you saw in theaters?
A buddy of mine's parents took me to see Grease.
Yeah.
And unbeknownst to my parents, when I saw Olivia Newton-John in the black tights, I thought I was going to hell. I was for sure.
But did you go see Grease 2?
No, I never made it back there. I couldn't even go see Star Wars for that matter.
Oh, really? Did you have a particular actor that, because you say you watch a lot of television, right? So did you have did you have a particular actor or a show even that really was kind of your catalyst or inspiration to this? I'm getting the acting bug out of this. This is something I really want to try and pursue.
No, not really. I mean, I was a big fan of the Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah.
Obviously, so much so that when I originally met John Schneider when I was 19 at a friend of mine's, house, I chased him around the entire party.
Yeah.
With all these Dukes of Hazzard questions. I was the most annoying 19-year-old ever. And it's funny because I just worked with John. We did our first movie with PureFlix in 2005 with him.
Yeah.
And then I did Holy Man with him, and then I just worked with him again. And since I think 8 years, I hadn't worked with him, and so I love John. John's actually a good friend now, and so it's kind of cool, the irony of the world, how
Oh yeah. between because same with because I remember you from Evening Shade. I watched.
I actually remember that.
Yeah, I was a big Burt guy. And I grew up watching sitcoms too, like all the ones from the '80s and everything in the '90s. So you were on also my favorite episode of Coach. I remember you from you were the pizza guy.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
When they're messing with each other in the apartments and everything. How did you land the Evening Shade role? Because that was not long after you went to California, right?
Yeah. I was 19. I'd been here 6 months, and I was working at a rental car, Enterprise rental car.
Yeah.
And I remember calling because I was auditioning. I had already been in the union now. Actually, no. I had done 2 commercials, a McDonald's commercial and something else, where I was SAG eligible.
Yeah.
So they hadn't forced me to be in the union. You get like 3 strikes before they push you in on that 3rd one.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, actually, I had done a show with Lauren Hawley. Lauren Hawley and something. It was like it was 1 year of where I was a motorcycle cop. I forget it started with an A. I forget the name of it, but I got to pull over Lauren Hawley, at 19. So that's not Evening Shade, but so I go on. I call, but I also wasn't working a ton, so I was playing around with extra work.
Yeah.
And I had been an extra on Baywatch and The Doors.
Oh, really?
And that movie, and then the Baywatch, the series. And I called, and they said Burt Reynolds is looking for people to be on the show, best friends of his son, and on the football team.
Yeah.
And but you'll come, whatever. And so I called within the amount of time that they give you, and somehow I got picked from, not because of my brilliance, I think because of my calling.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Perseverance. And I ended up meeting Burt Reynolds he was picking 4 or 5 team members to be on this episode, my first episode. And then I only knew like one movie star really, other than the television people, kind of. But Burt Reynolds, I knew Burt Reynolds because of Smoking the Bandit.
Yeah.
I had seen little pieces of it growing up. I'd never seen the whole movie because I wasn't allowed to watch those type of movies. But I had seen like enough where a car, mustache guy, super cool, enough to like be in my brain. And so that was one of the few reasons I just went to meet him, and then he picked me. And so I had no lines, but I stuck a line in my first. We were just extras, and I stuck a line in.
Mm-hmm. And
then Burt let me keep that line, and then he brought me back the next week with a character name, and then he put me on the show for 3.5 years.
Did you guys remain fairly close? Because I knew he was also on your show, Hitting the Brakes, right? Like, did you kind of remain fairly close over the years, or keep in touch briefly?
Not at all.
Yeah.
In fact, I was fired off of Evening Shade 3 years in, where you know a lot about me. I don't know why you don't know this story.
I do know the story. Like,
oh, you do?
I do. It was one of those questions.
Okay. Well, do you want me to repeat that?
Yeah, go for it. It's a really good story.
It's a good story. I mean, I was actually on with Hallmark yesterday, and they said they wanted to know all Burt Reynolds information, and I just gave this story to them yesterday, and they're like, great, say that on the show next week when you're on the show.
Yeah.
But it is a good story in the way that it's one more thing on the irony of life, is like, so Burt fired me. He was going to ask all the kids to play the adults on the show. And for those who don't know what the show was, it had all of Burt's friends. So like Hal Holbrook, Ozzie Davis, Ruby Dee, Elizabeth Ashley, Charles Durning, like all these superstars who I had no idea who they were.
Yeah.
But so he asked me to play him, and then before I had the mustache and the wig, and before we were going out for the live audience, he goes, hey, or I say, Burt, because he had put on weight, he was going through the divorce with Lonnie, and I said, would you mind if I stuck a pillow in my stomach? I just think it would be funny.
Yeah.
And he looked at me, and he's like, sure, kid. And And so I went and found the biggest pillow, stuffed it in my thing, and he had introduced everybody else. And Hilary Swank was playing the Mary Lou character on. She was my girlfriend in the show.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went out there and we did the little, I looked at him and I looked at his stomach and I looked at my stomach and I did my impersonation of Bert, and the audience loved it, but Bert had this really strange look on his face.
Yeah.
And he stuck it in that episode. It's actually very funny, though, because he sticks it in. I go out and I do my impersonation in the show then, in this play. All the high schoolers are playing, in this play, playing the adults.
Yeah.
And I do the impersonation, and they cut back to Bert going, "This isn't a play. This is a play about my stomach."
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great line that he delivers.
Yeah.
He got a big laugh, and you'd think that it would all go great, but the irony is that week I got canned and never asked back.
Oh, was there part of you that was like, well, this is at the least is a good story I could tell for the rest of my life, or was
Not
it
at all.
Not even that, like a little bit, like?
No, I mean now we can kind of see things happen to us. I don't know, maybe it's because we're older, but when you're younger, it was just like death blow to me.
Oh, sure.
It was like Bert was Bert was born the same year as my dad.
Yeah.
In 1936, and he was, when I left I left my father at 18 because he went to Canada, and I came to Hollywood then, and then Bert kind of took me under his wing. Like he was always there for me. Every episode he would come up and he'd give me a wink, and if he liked what I was doing, or he'd come over and whisper something in my ear to say, "Hey, go more this way." And so I actually felt just horrible that I had offended him because I loved him so much.
Was it kind of bittersweet then when he was on Hitting the Brakes years later?
No. So I went back to him when I found out that for sure I was canned, like a month later. I went back and I sat in his dressing room, and I met him on the lot. I just ran in, I snuck onto the lot, and then of course, I run into Bert in between his scenes. Yeah. And I said, "Would you mind I just want to talk to you for a minute." And he goes, "Sure, come on in, kid." And I think he was in between, he had a break or whatever, because we spent like an hour in there in his dressing room, just me and him. Yeah. And I apologized, and he said, "You know what, the show's wrapping up, it's on its down thing." And I didn't realize at the time that he was in a huge fight with Bloodworth Thomasons.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was a fight, because they owned, Designing Women and that Billy Bob Thornton show.
Oh, Hearts of Fire, yeah.
Hearts of Fire, and then there was Evening Shade. And they got to choose between, which one, they got to choose two of them that would get the syndication deal. Yeah. And they didn't choose Evening Shade because they had such a big thing against Burt Reynolds. Yeah. And so, so he said, the kids are all getting their way out. And his son had been acting up, too, had turned into a little movie star because, all of us were running around with people like Leo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire and, those, maybe you've heard of them a little bit.
Here and there.
Here and there,
That guy from Critters 3?
Yes. That's hilarious. And so I left there, going, happy that I had apologized, but sad in a way that, and then the show went away a year later. I got canned. And so I didn't speak to Bert then for another 20-some years. Yeah. And when Hitting the Brakes came up, playing somebody from the grade that I'm getting kind of mentored to, who was a gambler, a womanizer, maybe a drug addict, an alcoholic, who would be great to play that role? Yeah. I said, you know what, let's try for Bill Reynolds. Uh-huh. And I wrote him a long email, because it's been 20-some years. Oh, yeah. He remembered me, and then I got to spend 3 days in Florida with him, shooting those voiceovers, with Bert. And it was about a year before he had passed. Yeah. And I had a great time. And it was fun because, Bert was always proud. He was great, because obviously he had a school. He asked me to come speak at a school I was flying out because I don't know what happened, what the reason was that I couldn't do it. I wish I had done it though, but he was still teaching all the way up until the end.
Yeah.
And he was just proud of me for what, the stuff that I went off and did. Like, he was always proud of his students for whatever they would accomplish, And then he was like, why do I, who was he talking about? John Voight, John Voight's friends with him. And we've had John Voight in several of our stuff. And so he was always like, and it's funny because, too, I think John Voight did a foreword in his last book.
Yeah.
And if you've ever read that, he's like, they had this, like, love-hate thing. They loved each other, but, he's always like, why does John get all the great roles?
like Schwarzenegger is Stallone.
Things away from me. Yeah. And the issue is, I think that Burt had been aging, and then he had that back surgery, and he just, he was just declining really fast. So, anyway, it was a great time. That was a long, long answer to that. But.
Oh, no, it's totally, I mean, I'm a Burt Reynolds geek. I mean, like, totally worth it. Like, yeah, he's one of those guys I grew up with, too. Before I get to Beckman, there is one that I wanted to ask about, because I figured obviously the best person to ask this. I've been doing a video on Saved by the Bell, and on your bio, it lists that you were on a Saved by the Bell, but I can't find which specific episode. It doesn't say which specific episode it was. Do you remember, were you an extra on it, or did you have, like...
No, I was on it. I was on Saved by the Bell the college years.
That's the one I haven't gotten to yet.
Not Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
It was, it was the last year of their whatever. So I play like I'm just a student in it. I had this really funny scene with, I'm trying to think of how many scenes I have. I feel like I had a couple, I don't know how many got still left. I know, obviously, the one about the candy bar scene still stayed, where I'm selling candy bars to the big guy on there. There's like a dorm professor or something. He used to be a football player, I feel like. I
remember that character. Like, the college years I hadn't seen since it first aired, like in 93, 94.
Did it last 2 seasons or just one?
One. It's got like it was an 18 episode season, and I've been doing this video on it, and I'm like, I want to point out David A. Wright when he pops up on here, and then last night I go like, I haven't gotten to college years yet. I wonder if he was on the college years.
Yeah, I was a little bit older than high school at that point.
Oh, that's the best of watching those. Like the season 1 when they're in junior high, and you go like, that bully's 30.
Exactly.
Like the slasher movies.
Same thing as 90210.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I grew up.
Never catch a break though on 90210. Like, they would not let me on it. I think I was way too character and too tall.
Yeah.
They just would not. I think I read for that like 4 times, and every single time they're like, he's great, but just not for this. It just annoyed the crap out of me.
The Melrose Place people were nicer.
They were nicer. We're nicer, except, I mean, that's like funny, that wasn't, none of these are like marquee parts,
Oh, sure.
Like, oh, yeah, Melrose Place, I rocked it,
Do you have like a big poster for like a Murder Cycle or some of the 90s ones? And
no, did you ever see that?
I saw Murder Cycle years ago. Oh yeah, years and years ago. Like, oh, it had to have been the 90s. Like
90s. It was that heavy in the 90s.
Yeah.
That was like 93, 94.
That was back in my days where if it was, it's late at night, I'm not doing anything. If something's on HBO and Cinemax, that's what I'm doing for the night. Like, Murder Cycle, sold on the title.
Oh, yeah. How cool is this? Alien motorcycle. You had to love those effects.
Oh, yes.
Motorcycle.
Was that like the birth of, because I saw you say this in a buddy of mine's interview, that you might have the record for most non-raptured actor in a movie.
I wonder who I said that with, actually. But yeah, that is that's a joke that I use because it's true. I am the most cinematic actor who's been left behind more times than anybody else. Something like that.
That is pretty cool.
It's ridiculous.
It means you're in the movie longer.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm always the guy left behind. But it's always a joke that we bring up if, like, you know, at PureFlix, if there's ever, like, people are talking about end times or,
Yeah.
I don't know, it comes up every blue moon somewhere that I'm at, you know. So I can always pull that out. Well,
To seg into, since both action movies, when it comes to Beckman, like, between Beckman and the Revelation Road series, do you do a lot of preparation for it in terms of exercising, weapon training, martial arts, things like that? Is there a lot of heavy...
Well, to quote you and your other, I did watch you guys' video, you and Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin's, you know, and I was just annoyed that you didn't like them on my movie very well. I was very disappointed.
Oh.
Very disappointed.
You have been on my channel.
I was so disappointed that I came on here to set the record straight. I was. I actually do. I mean, I was a martial artist. When I got to LA, I actually trained in high school, but I didn't have really specified training. It was more just self-defense stuff.
Yeah.
In high school, and but I'm in the middle of a wheat field with like 2,000 people in my town. So the world's best martial artist was my Pizza Hut manager.
Yeah.
So we would train, you know, in the in my garage. I had a bag and did the whole thing. So I've always loved action movies from early on.
Yeah.
And had the flexibility to do it. And then also, I got curved into dancing for a while, which I know that sounds really gay, but you look at Jean-Claude Van Damme, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a reason why he can do dance, you know, why he can do those splits, and he's just super flexible. So that I had that going for me, as I was flexible at it, and then I got into martial arts out here, Taekwondo. So that just kind of led more into, you know, the more kicking, punching is what that more so is.
Yeah.
But I've done boxing. I've tried to stay current in these things. Now, am I, you know, every single time I quit martial arts, so to speak, because I hated fighting black belts.
Yeah.
I hated sparring with black belts because my ankles were always bruised. My face was, my neck, you're just, you know, there's just so much abuse to the body that you can take. And I was like, okay, I'll go and work out and train, but I don't want to fight these people.
Yeah.
I'll learn it in the movies when we do it. So all that to say, you know, I've done quite a few of these fight sequences from, I'm trying to remember, like Gruesome Countdown, I had a good one. But I also had a good one in Moment After 2 and 6, I think I had one. That was all right. But I've tried any of the apocalyptic movies.
Yeah.
I certainly enjoy. And then Red Roads, you know, with Gabe. Gabe is hand-to-hand, though. He's much more of the, he just likes the close, almost the Born Identity type stuff.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily play to my strengths, but, I mean, I've enjoyed learning them and, you know. But yeah, we trained on Beckman, though. We trained harder than I think we had done on other ones, and I think the fight sequences are better. I felt like we took a lot. You know, I wish they could always be longer.
Yeah,
but it takes so long to. You know, we shot Beckman, I think, in 26 days, which for Red Roads were done in 14, 15. You know, so we spent more time on this one for sure on our fight sequences. But you know, I still wish they were longer though.
Where'd the idea for the movie come from? Like, what was its origin? Was it on Gabe's end, or were you kind of looking for an action type role to be your next film?
I've been wanting to do a revenge movie for years.
Yeah.
And I was seeing, you know, because obviously John Wick is now the current trending thing, what Keanu is doing. But then you have those, and then the Taken movies were certainly, I liked it. But then I really liked when Kevin Costner did one, when Pierce Brosnan did one. Mm-hmm. You know, they started, like, all of a sudden the old guys were back.
Yeah.
In these, not just Jason Statham. I can never pronounce his last.
Statham.
How do you pronounce Statham? And I was like, you know what? Maybe I think it's time that we try one of these. And I got it signed off. And Purefix never would have signed this movie off.
Yeah.
It's complete. A revenge movie. How in the world can you have a hitman dealing with fate? Well, you can have it, but how in the world is that going to make our audience not just despise us and say David Ayer White just went off the deep end here? So we were doing a thing called Facebook Watch.
Yeah.
At the time that we started this, and I got the CEO Greg Gudorf at the time was I said I'll go and play around on these little 3-minute Facebook watches. Actually, no, like 9-minute episodes, and we'll do 8 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do like an action. We'll try it, and he's like, "Well, that could be interesting, David. Sure, why don't you try it?" Of course, secretly, I don't think I ever, Greg, if you're watching this, sorry, but I don't think I ever really thought that I was going to do 9-minute episodes on Facebook Watch and put all this time and effort and energy into this.
Mm-hmm.
And so Gabe and I signed up, and then I just slowly made it bigger.
Yeah.
But that's, I know you guys had a question about the chapters in Beckman.
Oh, yeah.
Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and that's where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because those were supposed to be episodes of Facebook Watch.
Oh, okay. I can see that, and I could tell, like, even with the Revelation Road series, how you can tell when something's made by someone who likes that genre that they're working in. Revelation Road movies doing a really good job of having a Mad Max feel, and in this, between revenge movies like John Wick, Drive Angry, things like that. Yeah, you can tell that because I'm like you. I like revenge movies too. That was a genre I grew up on, like all the way like The Exterminator and movies like that. So
there's no doubt about it. Obviously, I've been a bit disappointed by as the revenge movies have gone, on a lower side to specifically like to Van Damme's movies or Seagal's movies.
Yeah,
they just went cheesy and. I haven't seen either of their movies lately, so I don't want to say that they're not good because I haven't seen those. Maybe they've turned a corner and they're making much better ones. They're also making 4 or 5 of them a year, and so
yeah,
the attention to detail is missing sometimes.
Yeah. And also you can tell when the cameras in the Seagal movies, you can tell when the camera's sped up or when that's totally not him. I like little things like that. It's like, ooh, it has been a long time since Under Siege.
I did speaking of, Chuck Norris, I did a Chuck Norris movie years ago. His son, Mike Norris, who I love, is good friends, and it sought me out and said, "Hey, I really love what you're doing." This was right on Mercy Street's time when I did back in 2000. He said, "Hey, I love what you're doing." And he knew our stunt coordinator, Monty Perlin. And he said, would you come to Texas and do something with me that my dad and I are doing? And so, I don't know if you ever saw, what was the movie called? It was called, it'll come to me. Sorry, I can't think of the name of the movie. But it was funny to see Chuck didn't want to, Chuck had hip surgery. So he didn't want to, he wasn't throwing his roundhouses and all the, he did a couple kicks, but you're always kind of like, when that's their thing, you're like, oh, man.
Yeah.
You're like, I signed up for kicks, or,
like, that's why I'm the only one in the theater. Yeah, I remember with Chuck, I noticed that, I think, around Top Dog, I think, when there's, usually, like, when you're an action hero, like, a couple of things are going to happen. One movie, you're going to be partnered with a dog. Another movie, you'll be partnered with, like, a sassy kid or something like that. And this was around where Bert had Cop and a Half. Huh?
Jet Li is just still waiting for his dog and for his sassy kid.
Yes! Throw them both in the same movie. Well, you got to be a villain in Dancer and the Dame.
I did, yeah.
Was that fun, playing like a bad guy?
It was. I mean, the stupid suits, and, you know, we had these white, like, Florida-ish suits, and they were kind of fun, and, yeah, I enjoyed that whole thing. I think,
Playing a bad guy is a blast. It really is. Like, you've done...
It was. I mean, I don't know that I did really good in that movie. Gabe directed that movie.
Yeah.
But we were hamstrung by and that's another reason, you know, when we did the Rev Rhodes and Beckman, you know, it was a little just guerrilla filmmaking.
Yeah.
You know, we'd go around and do all kinds of things that we necessarily weren't permitted for. You'd see Gabe on a hood of a car, you know, while I'm driving, and there's, you know, you didn't get the permits, and you didn't get the, you know, he's not harnessed in, and you hope that I'm not going to throw him, slide him way off. But we do a lot of action for a very little amount of money because we're just, you know, we're out there just doing it all of ourselves. So in Dancer and the Dame, though, we had to be permitted. Everything was unionized, the crews, everything. And there's not that much action in that movie, and yet it costs probably 3 times as much as our other movies. So.
Oh, yeah. Over on my end, there's ones that like had like barely a budget because we would just sneak into places, but then you need that one location that is like 90% of the budget, and like, oh, suddenly it's a 6-figure film now because we need to shoot in this disco. Since you've played like a wide variety of roles, and I've mentioned this in our reviews, and I really mean it, I genuinely do, like, I really am a fan of like you as an actor. Like, I like how you play a wide variety of roles, from drama to action to comedy to a bad guy to a family man and things like that. And do you have a particular type that is your favorite type of role to play, or is maybe the most comfortable, or do you like ones where maybe you're not sure if this is a type of role I could play, but let's go ahead and give it a shot?
You know, I think when I was younger, I would do anything, just because I had a bone to pick with, you know, I was out to prove that I wasn't just a dumb kid from Kansas.
Yeah.
And who didn't know anything about the industry when I walked into it. You know, and that's the funny thing is I got on that show, you know, Evening Shade with Bert, and met all these people who had either won an Oscar, an Emmy, or a Tony.
Yeah.
And the thing that freaked me out, though, is that I felt untrained. And Bert had a school, and I remember I went and auditioned for his school, and they let me in, and they're like, you know, in Jupiter, Florida, and it was like this. I think we had finished season 1, and they said, "Do you want to go?" They said, "Why would you leave this show to go to school?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?" And I said, because I want to be able to, I want to be good at what I do. I want to be excellent at what I do. I don't want to be like just a hack of, you know, and they're like, well, why don't you just do it here? And Charles Nelson Riley was teaching a class.
Yeah.
And go into there and then start that process. And so I did. I studied Stella Adler. I studied Stanislavski and Meisner, and, you know, all the way around until I came to the one that I do now. But when it comes to, what was your question? Sorry.
Oh, just the different types of roles that you've played. If you have a particular one, if you have a particular type that is your most comfortable or favorite, versus ones that would be that you would feel would be riskier.
So my point of all that was to set up that I'm also aware. Sorry. I got a little ADD, I'm not gonna lie.
Dude, I'm severely ADHD. I hear you. I'm the same way, man.
Is that I realize also the things that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And when I think about, I was offered this white supremacist role to shave my head and to do that thing in a buddy's film.
Yeah.
Like 6 months ago. I only do that because the film we're working on right now has that guy who's the lead in it, who's awesome. And he brought that thing up that reminded me of this yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I think I'm a brand in and of myself, where I have levels to where I can go, but I'm also very much aware that I don't want to be in a movie where I gain a bunch of weight, where I try to play, you know, just certain characters that I just don't, or a white supremacist where I'm shaving my head and being, you know, that much of a villain.
Yeah.
You know, the villain in Dancer with Dame was more fun, and, you know, it was more
totally
tongue-in-cheek, and so I just think I'm aware of, like, I think my limitations on something would be stupid if I did that, and I don't have a desire to do that. So that to say, I like comedy in the way that, you know, there had never really been any comedies in the faith industry, and so I really felt the need to expand this genre in every, you know, in all the different facets that I could. Mm-hmm. And comedy is, I'd like to believe that I have a sense of humor and enjoy life in a lot of different ways, and so I like that part. But then I also I'm a big fan of action and that. What I'm not a big fan of, though, is dramas. Like
oh yeah,
I don't have a lot of desire to get an Oscar for drama, playing a guy with cancer, or just like, it seems just, I don't like heavy. I think action I love and comedy I love.
Yeah.
Dramas,
I
don't even like watching it very much.
Sometime, like, well, I watch about anything, but then you'll find those sweet buried dramas that unintentionally turn into a comedy, like some of the melodramas from the '80s or something like that.
Well, yeah, but those are like, you know, dramedies is what I think.
Like it crosses over into the other genre. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but this has been really fun. Like, thank you. Like, you've been a really, really cool person to talk to, and it was really cool of you to do this. I will ask, is there any chance in the future for, like, the possibility of a Revelation Road 4? I did really like those movies.
Hey, I love that. A lot of people like those movies, actually. It's just shocking how many times we get, what happened to Rev Road 4? Everybody just has this grand question, like, I really insulted them by... I'm sorry, Gabe insulted by the fourth setup, and then, you know, then we haven't paid it off yet. Yeah, we do. We actually have we're developing a series for Rev Road, which is really cool. It's like The Empire Strikes Back with the apocalypse.
Oh, nice.
It's really cool. And, you know, Gabe just wrote it big, and, you know, the whole thing, there's a thing called, I can't actually say it, but yeah. It's really cool. So we're just waiting for the day when we have a little more money.
Oh, sure.
And in the process of it, Beckman came out because I was like, I also wanted to just do a revenge movie. And I'm planning on Beckman too. Hopefully it performs well enough that we can go to Thailand and do our sequel. So
how was the premiere? Did the premiere turn out fun?
Premiere was great.
Yeah.
We missed you.
I know, I got the invite, and I was talking to my wife, and I go, man, I wish I could go out to California in a couple of days. My wife's like, you know you can't, right?
Yeah, you're not going to get a plane and play. But it was great. You know, we were the first Hollywood premiere back. So we got a lot of coverage on it. Some of the cable shows did things. Entertainment Tonight did something on it. Yeah, there's a lot of... we did the whole socially distanced thing and the masks.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this picture's floating around of all these people in Beckman masks, which is cool.
That's really cool.
And we did it outside the Universal Hilton, so Universal is distributing this home entertainment aspect of Beckman, so...
That is great promotion, like, with the masks and everything. Like, the shots of the premiere, and you just have the title of the movie across your face and everything. Like,
it really is.
This is amazing.
It just so happened, I was thinking about, like, people, we had this great guy, Roger Neal, who I just had not, this is the first thing I'd done with him. He came in as a PR, he's a great old-time PR guy. Yeah. And he came in and said, I'll throw this premiere for you. And I think Roger knew, too, that it would get picked up by a lot of people, given that no one else had done it. And he saw it as a challenge, and, you know, and Universal Hilton was pretty much shut down, other than they let us right out there in the ballet zone, do it, and then have, you know, it was like screen outside. It was fun. It was really fun. And we had 80s music pumping, and we had the bars open, and people were just having a good time. Not that I'm endorsing alcohol by any means for anybody out there, but but we had this our you know, it was fun.
Where's the, because it's all over VOD and DVD and Blu-ray now. What's the best way to find it on VOD? Pretty much just any service like Vudu, Amazon, all of that.
Apple. All those, iTunes. Yeah, it's everywhere. And it's on. It should be pay-per-view on your DirecTV and your Dish and wherever else. You can just rent it that way. But of course, the hard goods are in Walmart, Target, Best Buy.
Yeah.
All of those places as well. So, yeah, it's been good though. So it was fun.
Thank you so much for doing this. That's my notes are great because it's like sitting here like writing Murder Cycle on there. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for doing this. And seriously, like, anytime you want to come back, anytime you got anything to promote, new movies or series, anything, it'd be great to talk to you again.
Well, thank you also for reviewing our movies. I
of course.
Your reviews on them, but I have enjoyed the few that I've seen. Yeah, so congrats on all your stuff doing. I know it's not, YouTube is not an easy platform to you know, whatever, but you have your thing that you do, and you do it very well, and you're fun to listen to. In fact, my son and I watch your stuff.
Thank you. You have to watch the, they just put up one the other day where I drank a 20-some-year-old thing of Tab Clear, and spoiler, it didn't kill me on camera.
Good for you, man. It's like, good for you, and creating your own niche and doing it, you know, that's not an easy thing, but it's such an important thing in this world, and it's exciting, especially. That's the thing about this pandemic that I think has been good for people, is it's forced them into thinking outside of the box of their regular jobs. Maybe hopefully digging inside and finding something that they actually enjoy, you know. And
like, since our studio was closed for a little bit, I had to turn my closet into a makeshift filming room, and like, dude, you should see my setup here right now. It's 2 TV trays, the camera's right there on a stack of VHS tapes. Is it really? It is. I got the camera sitting on a bunch of James Bond movies. Just... All right, so let me ask you this. One last question before I leave you. Yeah, of course. What is your favorite action movie besides Beckman? You can't say Beckman. But when you think about, like, of all action movies, give me your top 3. Top 3. Escape from New York. Die Hard. That's an easy. It's one the answer most people probably give. On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the Lazenby Bond movie. Love revenge movies. Like, I grew up, like, my dad and I watched, like, the Eastwood movie, Dirty Harry, and then the Bronson flicks and Exterminator. So I always had a soft spot for all of those. Like, those are the ones I really grew up with. Yeah, that's pretty cool. What about you? I was trying to tell my son, there's a new Mel Gibson movie that came out, and I was trying to tell him who Mel Gibson was. Yeah. Last night, and show him the Lethal Weapon trailers. I own all the Lethal Weapons. I do love those movies. However, there's no trailers on the Apple movie that you own. Oh. 1 through 4. Yeah. I kept going, why is there no I knew the trailer was going to be cheesy from the 80s. You know, they're always not really. They're great. But you can't, like, there's no trailers on those. I could have YouTubed them, I'm sure, and shown them, but anyway. So he still doesn't really know who Mel Gibson is. Yeah, I didn't see this new Force of Nature, I think is what it was called. Yeah. I wanted to, and then it was a case of, like, one of those movies where I think in reality he's barely in the movie. I know, and I was like, wow, they cut back to him in that, he's got a great scene. He is killing somebody at the very end, though, which I like, but he's still in that apartment. Yeah. Most of his scenes in the trailer are in the apartment. Although he does go outside, I think, once. That's honestly more than I usually see Seagal doing in, like, the past years. I know. I have a couple friends who have done some Seagal, produced those movies, and they'll say, yeah, we have him for 2 days and he sits in a hotel room the whole time. A buddy of mine is an editor and edited one of them and was like, dude, I don't know what I'm going to do. I got like 20 minutes of footage and they want me to spread it over the course of the whole movie. I'm like, have fun. Independent filmmaking right there. Yeah, dude. But
All right, brother.
no, this
nice to meet you in person. Thank
it
you.
was really nice to meet you too. Have a great week.
All right. Hey, you too.
Hey,
No.
Tabitha, won't get away with this.
Where is she? We must finish what we started.
Nothing is gonna save you now.